Hello, viewers and learners. In the series of international relations theory, today I am going to discuss with you feminist theory in international relations. Feminist theory in international relations comes with a unique contribution and perspective regarding international relations, regarding state system, regarding the overall international relations theory. I am beginning with this topic with a quote by Simone de Beauvoir. She said, "It is not in giving life, but in risking life that man is raised above the animal. That is why superiority has been accorded in humanity not to the sex that bring forth, but to that which kills."
So it shows the very character of both male and females. So
So,
those who gave birth, they should be given more importance rather than those who kept on, say, planning how to kill or how to dominate or how to control. In the introductory part of this feminist theory of international relations, there are certain important things that you should take a note of. The first thing is that feminist approaches in international relations, they begin in the 1980s. They have used gender as a major category of analysis. In a way, we can even say that they have developed numerous gender categories and their relationships. Now, when we talk about these gendered categories, what they have done is that they have divided international relations and the main actors of international relations in a gendered, they have put them in some gendered categories, and they have also given importance to gender perspective in international relations, or how diplomacy, relations between states, right, how they have been played out and how gender played an important role in that. Knowledge, according to feminist scholars, knowledge is shaped by culture, history, and context. It is a very important point because we believe that knowledge is something which is objective in nature. But in reality, feminist scholars argue that knowledge in any field, it is shaped by culture. So cultural factors, they do have an impact on the knowledge. If we talk about international relations, whatever knowledge that has been created in international relations or international relations theory, it does have an impact of the culture. It also does have an impact of the history and particularly the context in which things have been explained. So knowledge is not something that you can see separately. Rather, knowledge is or you can say knowledge is a product of culture, history, and context. Feminist scholars, they signify relationships of power not only in the home but also in the world of foreign policy and international relations. Now, this is an important thing in the sense that gendered relationships and the smallest unit where gendered relationships played an important role in terms of power, it is home. So home, which is the closest and the smallest unit where gendered relations played out, and one gender, they dominate the others. So from home till international relations and foreign policy, these gendered relations are playing an important role in who's exercising power or who's controlling the power. So at the international level or in foreign policy, gender do have a role to play. So from the smallest entity to the biggest one, foreign policy and IR, gender played an important role. Next important thing is that feminist theorists, they keep before them an emancipatory goal of achieving equality for women via the elimination of unequal gender relationship in international relations. So they want to free the discipline of international relations from gender bias. They want to free the discipline of IR from its masculine trait or domination, right? They want to make it a discipline which is like free or which is gender neutral, where the perspectives, opinion, experiences, observations of everyone, right, including women, they should be given a space and they should be treated equally. Feminist scholars tend to be more associated with liberal, post-colonial, constructivist, critical theorist, postmodern, and other understandings than with realism, English school, economic structuralism, or other approaches of international relations. So feminism is closer to certain disciplines within international relations or certain approaches within international relations, like liberal approach, like the post-colonial approach or the constructivist approach or critical theory, postmodernism, etc., rather than realism, English school, or economic structuralism, because international relations as a discipline is dominated by realism. So most of the perceptions regarding international relations, most of the theories regarding international relations, most of the realities that has been explained about international relations, they are given by realist scholars, or they are based on realist assumptions. Joshua Goldstein, in his important book War and Gender in 2001, argued that despite political, economic, and cultural differences, gender roles in war are consistent across all known human societies. So, this finding is quite interesting in the sense that generally when we study wars, then in different kind of wars, different kind of factors played important roles, right? So there can be political factors, there can be economic factors, there can be military reasons, or there can be some cultural differences, etc., that may provoke war or played an important role of war. But in reality, the similarities, like it depends on case to case basis. So not in case of all the bases, you will not in case of all the wars, you will find those similarities. But Joshua Goldstein has find out that gender roles, they are like similar in different kind of political, economic, and despite having political, economic, and cultural differences, gender roles, they play an important role in most of the human societies and wars. Women in international relations, how they have been depicted. So feminist scholars, they primarily focus on this particular thing, that how woman or how woman perspective is there in international relations, whether it is there or not, or whether it is neglected. So international relations or international politics, it has been argued that it's a men's world. It's a world of power and conflict in which warfare is a privileged activity. So when you look at international politics, you get the impression that it is a field which is dominated by the men. There are various reasons for that, because around the world when you see men as the head of the state, or the ones who are heading or taking care of their foreign policies, etc., right? Or men who are serving as the heads of various international organizations, then you get this impression that international politics or international relations as a field is primarily dominated by men. Apart from that, the generalized understanding of international politics is that it is a field where power politics is being played out. So whosoever is powerful or whosoever is, say, interested in that power politics, that competition for power, only they have a space or they can get representation in international politics. And in order to acquire, get more and more power, if you have to indulge in conflicts or if you have to wage wars, all these things are justified. So most of the time, international relation theorists, they kept on focusing on questions of war and peace, or say questions relating to power, warfare, etc. Warfare, as it has been said, is a privileged activity in international relations, and since women are not participative in these warring activities, they have been largely neglected. Another important thing is that traditionally, diplomacy, military service, and the science of international politics have been largely main domains. Now, this is again a very practical and interesting perspective. The point which I was making is that if you look at the various heads of the state around the world, if you see who are their foreign ministers, if you see who is handling their foreign office or taking care of their diplomacy, if you see that who are representing the states in different global institutions, multilateral forums, if you see then who are heading different international organizations, then you get the impression that primarily it is a field which is dominated by males. So the kind of services or the kind of positions which are there in international politics, when everywhere you find that males are serving, then you get this impression that this particular field is dominated by males alone, right? And when males are dominating this field, then females, because they are normally not interested in all these things, right? So that is the reason that in international relations, males are largely dominating the perspective. In the past, women have rarely been included in the ranks of professional diplomats or the military. Of the relatively few women who specializes in the academic discipline of international relations, few are security experts. So if you just see the list of international relations theorists, probably out of top 50 or 100 theorists, you will find very few women. Similarly, if you make a list of global security experts, there again you will find that most of the security experts are male. In academic discipline of international relations, although scenario is changing, so more women are coming. But if you make a list and again you see, then most of the diplomatic community and most of the high ranking military officials, they are all males. It doesn't mean that there is no change taking place at all. Changes are coming in this field and many women are also coming in this field. But still, this field as of now is dominated by males. In the United States, where women are entering the military and foreign service in greater numbers than ever before, they are rarely to be found in positions of military leadership or at the top of the foreign policy establishment. So even like the feminist scholars, they argued that even if women are represented, right, in military services or in foreign services, even if their number is increasing, which is an encouraging trend, even then rarely they were given positions of leadership. Why? Because there is a kind of glass ceiling practice which is prevalent in military and foreign policy establishment. So they believe that decisiveness and the kind of quick decision making capabilities which are
They
required.
believe that the kind of decisiveness and the kind of quick decision making capabilities which are required at the top level, that is probably somewhere missing. So that is a bias that is still prevailing. One notable exception in case of America was Jeane Kirkpatrick, who was US ambassador to the United Nations in the early 1980s. This was probably one of the few examples in the initial phase when women get an important position in United States of America, when for the first time US ambassador, a female was appointed US ambassador to United Nations. And she has described herself as a mouse in men's world. She has also expressed this thing that in spite of her authoritative and forceful public style and strong conservative credentials, Kirkpatrick maintains that she fails to win the respect or attention of her male colleagues on matters of foreign policy. So even if a woman who is having all the credentials to become a good diplomat or to represent the national interest of their state on various international forums, even then their participation, their knowledge, their contribution, right, they did not get much respect by the male colleagues, those who are serving. There are a lot of gendered interpretations in the field of international relations, and feminist theorists, they primarily question those gendered interpretations. Here I'm taking one example, nuclear strategy. So if you look at the term nuclear strategy and the vocabulary that is surrounding this term, like power, threat, force, or deterrence, it has a distinctly masculine character, right? Certain terms which are associated with wars or warring strategies or certain kind of weapons, right? They they give you an impression which are male centric, and women's are stereotypingly judged to be lacking in qualities which all these terms evoke. So When you look at all these terms like power or say threat or force, generally these are the terms which are not associated with female characteristics. And that is the reason that this kind of bias is quite prevalent in international relations, because the kind of concepts that are there, right, and the kind of terminologies which are used and the way they have been practiced, they are all masculine in character. So somewhere women, they did not get adequate representation in international relations. It has been argued that although more women are entering in the field of public policy, but they are more comfortable in dealing with domestic issues such as social welfare that are more compatible with their nurturing skills. So there is this another kind of gender bias that we see. So even when we are seeing that more and more women are entering into the field of world public policy, yet there is a prevalent perception that most women are comfortable in dealing with domestic issues even in case of public policies. So domestic issues like taking care of social welfare or like the children's welfare, right? Certain fields where their creative qualities can be used. So they will find themselves more compatible and more comfortable in those areas because their nurturing skills can be utilized in those areas of public policy. While if you have to suppose make a defense policy, right, or a military strategy, there probably women will not be suited. The reason being that they are not fit for that kind of job. So this bias is still prevalent, and feminist scholars argue that generally they believe that women are more comfortable with social welfare and things where our their nurturing skills can be utilized. Masculine, the feminist scholars, they have also tried to interpret and explain that what are the characteristics that are generally associated with males and females. So they call them masculine characteristics and feminine characteristics. So if you look at some of the concepts in international relations like power, diplomacy, security, war, aggression, military, sacrifice, or say nationalism, right? If you look at these concepts, then what are the characteristics of a human beings that can be associated with these concepts? So primarily it has been argued that the male characteristics of being brave, decisive, adventurous, violent, aggressive, right, dominating, having an expansionist viewpoint, they are more closer to the concept of international concepts, the concepts of international relations. On the other hand, there are certain characteristics that are generally associated with females. For example, care. So they argue that most of the females, they are careful, right? There is generally a kind of allegation against female that they are emotional, right? And if you are emotional, then you can't handle international relations. Then women, they have nurturing capabilities, they are more creative, they are more constructive, they are more peace loving, they are more non-violent, right? So all these qualities of females, somewhere the scholars, particularly the realist scholars, they found that they are not fit in international relations, because if you see the concept of international relations, they are more male or masculine centric, right? Now there is a counter argument also to this point. Feminist scholars, they have argued that other than what has been said by the realist scholars, international relations or international community, humanity needs something more, right? So there are large number of women in the ranks of peace movement, which suggest that women are not uninterested in the issues of war and peace. So when you show your interest, express your interest in issues of war and peace, it doesn't mean that you should necessarily participate in a war or you should necessarily support a war or develop a kind of military strategy, right? Rather, there can also be a possibility that you play a constructive role in establishing peace. So, women can play a very constructive role in peace building activities. So, feminist scholars they have argued that there more representation in war and peace related activities, particularly in the peace movement. It shows that women are very much interested in international relations. Although their frequent dissent from national security policy has often been branded them as naive, uninformed, and even unpatriotic. So, certain labels are still associated with females, and there is a reason because every country they want to pursue their national interest, and in order to pursue their national interest, national security is something that became very important for them. And whosoever who will not show much interest in how a country can strengthen its national security or how they could achieve their national interest, they were generally labeled, they were generally branded, right, as naive or say uninformed or even say unpatriotic. Then this feminist scholars they have further extended their interpretation of international relations to international organizations. So they have also studied the condition or the representation of women in international organization. Sandra Whitworth, she has been associated with this representation of women in international organization, and a recurring theme of her work is how international organizations are part of complex political social processes that aid in the construction of assumptions about the proper role of women and men in the workforce. The underlying assumption is that such institutions are a reflection of the interest, norms, and ideas of hegemonic groups. So, Sandra Whitworth, she has studied how many women are actually represented in international organizations, how many women are heading those organizations, how many women are serving these organizations as representative of their respective states. She has written an important book, In Men, Militarism and UN Peacekeeping. So the title of the book is Man, Militarism and UN Peacekeeping, a Gendered Analysis. It was written in 2008. In this book, Sandra brings gendered understanding of national participation in international organizations. So, how countries are represented, by whom they are represented. So, largely you will find that it is the males who are representing a state at various national, international forums, multilateral organizations, etc. So, women rarely get a chance to represent their states. One important contribution in the field of feminist IR theory is of Cynthia Enloe. She has written an important book, Bananas, Beaches and Bases, Making Feminist Sense of International Politics. It was written in 1990. She argued that we should start with where are the women in world politics. So first you should start questioning where are women in world politics. She further argued that women's exclusion from world politics was presumed as a natural consequence of their biological or natural roles. It means that women are largely suitable for serving as cheap labor or as prostitutes around the military bases or as the wives of diplomats. It means that they have some ceremonial functions or secondary functions. They have some serving duties rather than leading from the front. She has demonstrated and highlighted the critical role of women in the functioning of international economic and political systems. She has also created and explained the distinction between women's and men's work that has been largely divided and portrayed and also practiced. She has also highlighted militarization or militaristic ideas and how those militaristic ideas influence the lives and choices of both men and women. So generally, when we talk about militarization, it means that military is gradually occupying, controlling all the resources, and people they have been largely left to serve the interest of military, right? So in whatever ways it is possible, in case of males, they may fight along with them. In case of females, they have some allied functions or supportive functions. We'll continue with feminist IR theory in the second lecture. Thank you.